Given the amount of apathy that has now fallen upon a once formerly beloved franchise, I think it's safe to say that the MCU is dead. It came to a glorious and well-deserved conclusion with the release of Avengers Endgame, but it died the moment Phase 4 started. And I'm sure that 90% of you can agree with me on that. But as for the stubborn 10% die-hard MCU fanatics, come on now, you guys, the MCU is dead. It was fun while it lasted, but it's over. We need to pack it up and embrace James Gunn's brand new DCU that will introduce the unpopular copy and paste gay versions of the Justice League before he introduces the main Justice League characters. Oh, good God, we're in trouble. But seriously, you know when food passes its expiration date, but it still looks good, so you keep eating it until you literally can't stomach the rotten taste anymore? Yeah, that's the current state of the MCU, and Endgame was the expiration date. Still don't believe me? Okay. How many of you are watching Secret Invasion right now? How many of you even know it exists, let alone that it's currently airing? How many of you so-called die-hard MCU fans went back to cinemas to rewatch Ant-Man 3 and give it your support in the box office? Do you even remember what the story was about, or that it even came out in February of this year? How many of you have gone back to rewatch anything in the MCU that came out after Endgame besides No Way Home? Do you guys genuinely care about any of the 3 independent women of queer color that are starring in the latest upcoming MCU flop in the long line of painfully generic, shamelessly formulaic and poorly received flops? The answer is no. Why? Because the MCU is no longer the all-powerful cinematic giant that once had a chokehold on pop culture year after year with each new release. Now they're just another failing franchise that's fighting for the attention of the masses. They once start anticipating and analyzing their every move. Have you noticed how nobody cares about trailer breakdowns or hidden Easter egg videos anymore? It's because nobody is as invested in these movies as they used to be, because there's nothing to be invested in anymore. Right now, I might come across as this pretentiously cynical Martin Scorsese worshipping movie critic that thinks every film needs to be an elevated, groundbreaking work of art, but I'm really not. Actually, I couldn't be further away from those descriptions even if I tried, because I'm the guy that cried, shed freaking tears when Tony died in Endgame. I'm the same guy that doesn't need to rewatch all the relevant MCU movies before the next one comes out, because I religiously binge the entire MCU at least once a year just for fun. So believe me when I tell you that this is literally my favorite franchise. But despite all that, I can't sit here and pretend to be even remotely excited about the next big Avengers movie, which is crazy when you consider the fact that the reason I didn't off myself back in 2019 when I was really sad was because I realized that I hadn't watched Avengers Endgame yet. Let that sink in for a sec. The MCU used to be so great that it literally gave me a reason to stay alive. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think going from that to having 2 upcoming Avengers movies that nobody seems to be excited about should be very unsettling for whoever is running the MCU right now. Do you guys even know what Avengers Kang Dynasty is going to be about? Who exactly will be in it? Who the next main villain is going to be? Or the most important question, who will be the new leader of the Avengers? Is it going to be Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Captain America, Super Genius, Child Prodigy, Independent, Female, Black Iron Man? I mean Ironheart, Super Genius, Child Prodigy, Independent, Female, Black Panther? I mean Shuri? I can bet you right now that if you pose this question to the most enthusiastic MCU fan you know, he won't be able to give you a straight answer. Who exactly is leading the new MCU? What exactly is going on, and where is all this going? These are some of the questions that run through my mind when I sit and think about the post-Endgame MCU for more than 3 seconds. In phases 1 to 3, we had our own version of the DC Trinity, almost beat for beat. We had an obscenely wealthy billionaire orphan that fights crime in a suit stacked with the latest tech and is willing to make some tough, morally great choices for the good of his team and the world at large. We had the most righteous man on earth, dressed in his classic all-American red and blue colors, that always wanted to do the objectively right thing, save as many lives as possible, and is the unspoken leader of the team, even though the billionaire orphan pays for everything.
Lab's all set up, boss.
Oh, actually, he's the boss. I just pay for everything and design everything and make everyone look cooler.
And is more popular amongst the fans. And finally, we had the literal god that is a child of the chief god of their respective mythology, who is very powerful, stoic, and despite having no real reason to dwell amongst us mere mortals or care about our affairs, still has enough faith in humanity to continually fight for our survival. Or they just have this really attractive human friend of the opposite sex that they would very much like to keep having sex with. And I guess it would actually kill their vibe if their human friend kept crying about, oh, my planet got destroyed, I miss my friends, my family. So they team up with the local heroes every once in a while to keep their human friend happy and prevent all that bitching and complaining. But both scenarios are equally valid, I guess. Either way, they got our backs while also dishing out or receiving back shots. Anyway, Tony Stark, Steve Rogers and Thor, these were our primary focal characters on whose backs the foundations of phase 1 of the MCU were built. Before we had the Avengers, we had Iron Man, Captain America and Thor. They carried us through phases 1 to 3 as we faced new threats and gained new allies. They all had trilogies, some better than others, that dove deeper into their respective characters.
That's what
Give us reason to care about their struggles and their goals, and got us so deeply invested in them to the point where we had to watch the next Avengers movie just to see them interact with each other, make tough choices, grow as real people, and pay off character arcs that had been built up over the course of several years. Sure, we also came for the action, the spectacle, and the big blue CGI beam in the sky. Remember when every single movie had a blue sky beam? Crazy. But none of those things would matter to us if we didn't care about the characters at the center of those big CGI spectacles. If you went back in time and told a person from 2005 that the whole world would lose their fucking minds over some white guy in a dirty red and blue suit catching a hammer, he'd think we were all on drugs or something. But because the premise was established in Thor 1 that only he who is worthy can lift the hammer,
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
and the seed was planted in Age of Ultron that the most righteous member of the Avengers might have budged that same hammer just a little bit.
Right, so if I lift it, I then rule Asgard?
Yes, of course.
Come on, Cap.
When they finally paid it off in Endgame,
I knew it.
as a society, we all collectively lost our minds and came together to experience the sheer awesomeness of that moment, eradicating racism, solving world hunger, and achieving world peace for those sweet 3 hours. Then immediately went back to virtue signaling each other on Twitter.
Because that's what heroes do.
Or in this case, Thread, whichever one is still relevant by the time this video comes out, I guess. But even amongst those 3 characters, we had a clear face of the franchise, a character who was arguably the heart of the whole universe because he was our introduction to it. Throughout phases 1 to 3, Tony showed up in 10 movies out of the 22 in the saga, by far the most significant amount of screen time in the whole franchise. The Infinity Saga started with his metamorphosis in that cave and ended with his sacrifice on the battlefield. He played pivotal roles in most of the major events that transpired in the MCU. He risked the future of his company just to save innocent lives overseas when he found out his own weapons were being sold to and used by the enemy to oppress those he intended to protect, eventually drawing the attention of Nick Fury, who was putting together the Avengers at the time.
Who the hell are you? Nick Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
He became a founding member of the Avengers, fought by their side, and dealt the final blow to the Chitauri during Loki's invasion of Earth, risking his life and saving the whole of New York from nuclear eradication in the process. I'm sure we won't see this again. He created Ultron to prevent another invasion, a peacekeeping artificial intelligence that went rogue and tried to literally nuke the entire planet, killing thousands in the process. So, his plan was to protect the entire world by killing the entire world.
Not a great plan.
He then signed off on the Accords, a bill that says, wait, or was it a law? I don't know the difference, you guys. Looks like a stack of documents to me. I think I'll just call it documents. A document that was signed by the United Nations and states that all superheroes need to register with and report to the US government before they do anything superhero related. After feeling guilty about creating Ultron, driving a major wedge between the team he helped create, which eventually led to their inevitable separation, leaving the world vulnerable to the advances of a certain big purple alien and his adopted children. The very outcome he was trying so hard to prevent. He brought Spider-Man back home to the MCU where he belonged and mentored him from afar until he matured into a full-fledged Avenger, or until he became a stowaway on a stolen alien ship headed for a desolate alien planet that would serve as the battleground for the first line of defense against Thanos. And Tony, being too lazy to turn the ship around and drop him off, just ends up being forced to officially anoint him as an Avenger. But both scenarios are equally valid, I guess. He led the first line of defense against Thanos on his home world and was ready to sacrifice himself to keep the purple guy from getting the rest of the stones. I wonder what this must be foreshadowing. He perfected freaking time travel overnight on the kitchen counter in between doing the dishes, being a W husband and being a W dad. He gave his life to save the entire universe without a second thought, letting go of everything he had, his wealth, his friends, his wife and his daughter, just to make sure Thanos couldn't enact his genocidal plans on the universe ever again. Oh wow, would you look at that? What? The thing they have been teasing for 3 separate Avengers movies actually happened. I'm shocked. Truly, we watched him go from being motivated by his own self-interest in Iron Man 1 and 2 to his fear and anxiety in the Avengers, Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron, to his guilt in Civil War, up until he finally paid off that character arc that was set up for him in the first Avengers movie.
You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
Leading him to ultimately give his life in Endgame. Even in death, he still tried to keep the world safe because before he died, he put measures in place to make sure that he would for sure get a replacement. Even though all the writers definitely already forgot about the glasses from Far From Home and were never going to see them in MCU ever again. Every significant character growth or change he went through either directly influenced or was a direct result of a major event in the MCU. So when he was on screen, we had to pay attention. And the fact that he was so funny, charismatic, charming, and had the best raise in the entire MCU. Take a seat, Mr. Lord.
Mr. Lord, can you get your folks to circle up? Mr. Lord. Star-Lord is fine.
On top of all that, was riddled with relatable character flaws, didn't make it any easier to look away even if we wanted to. After his trilogy concluded, he literally showed up in at least one MCU film every year for 5 straight years between 2015 and 2019. What other character do you know has such significant amount of relevant screen time in the franchise? He was the foundation for the MCU and continued to be the cement that held that skyscraper of a franchise together. Tony Stark wasn't just that guy, he was our guy, and the franchise hasn't been the same without him. Joe Rogan said it best himself.
Here's what I think. They go through a few semi-lackluster Avengers movies without you.
So remind me again, who do we have that fills those shoes in the new MCU? Phase 4 has introduced 26 new major characters, and by the end of it, neither of them have met each other. For comparison, Phase 1 introduced 4 major characters and they all teamed up at the end in the first Avengers movie. What exactly was the big events that capped off Phase 4? Where exactly do you draw the arbitrary line between Phases 4 and 5? I honestly see no difference between Phase 4, Phase 5 and even Phase 6, so I'll just refer to all of it as the new MCU from now on. Are we now supposed to follow Clown Thor, Captain African American and Independent Iron Woman of Color as our new Trinity? Who exactly are the new members of the Avengers, since half of the original team are essentially dead and the other 3 haven't been in a room together since Tony's funeral? Am I supposed to care about Moon Knight teaming up with Shang-Chi and She-Hulk as they try and fix the multiverse?
Yes! No! God, please, no!
You guys, come on now, let's be real. The MCU is dead. It gave perfect conclusion to 2 of its best and most pivotal characters and wrapped up the story of the universe as close to perfectly as they could. If the franchise wants to carry on, it needs to replace those 2 characters. And I don't mean changing the agenda or swapping their race, or both. Doctor Strange, Thor, Hulk, even a recasted Black Panther would have been perfect candidates for this replacement, but they decided to go on a complete character assassination rampage, destroying the remaining legacy heroes we've got left while simultaneously introducing their knockoff female replacements. And if that's who they expect to lead the MCU going forward, then I take back every single thing I said in this video, because obviously it worked out so well the last time they tried to make a female character the new leader of the Avengers.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Yes, bitch!